A sinister shadow with glowing eyes stalks through the forest, its presence a palpable threat. Below, a young girl flees in terror, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The unseen pursuer has a single target in mind, a name that echoes with malice. Iris. Her desperate flight ends abruptly as she trips and falls. Crying out for help, she finds herself surrounded by small, grotesque creatures. Towering over her, a massive, tusked beast raises a spiked club, ready to deliver a crushing blow. Before the club can land, a flash of steel deflects it. From above, Yugram descends, his sword already in motion. Simultaneously, Iris leaps into the fray, her spear at the ready as she shouts a warning to her companion about the airborne warrior. The tusked creature curses in frustration, its attack blocked by Iris's spear. The young girl, who had braced for impact, opens her eyes in astonishment, realizing she is completely unharmed. She stands defiantly between the child and the monsters, leveling her spear. With a commanding voice that cuts through the tension, Iris points forward and orders the fiends to retreat at once. The rescued girl looks up at her savior with wide, reverent eyes, whispering her name. In this moment, she is not just a warrior, but a symbol. Iris Rune Afnoa, the hopeful maiden of the Aldnoa kingdom. She is the fulfillment of a sacred oath to fight evil and protect the innocent, a golden hero blessed by the divine. Her opponent, however, is unimpressed. The orc sneers that another human has simply arrived to die. Iris dismisses his taunts, stating that whatever he is babbling about is irrelevant. She will make short work of him. As she speaks, the tip of her spear begins to glow with intense heat. He scoffs, boasting that he'll finish her in a single blow. The orc swings his massive club, but she is far too quick, leaping and twisting through the air to evade the clumsy attack with ease. As the orc winds up for another powerful strike, she braces herself. She knows that a direct hit from that club would be the end. Stealing her resolve, she prepares to meet the attack head-on. His attack misses. The orc grunts, first in surprise, and then in confusion, feeling only a minor sting. Iris, however, stands poised and confident. Pointing her finger at the beast, she declares her victory. Her spear's magic sears the orc's arm, causing the massive creature to cry out in agony. His minions look on in disbelief. Standing her ground, she informs the brute that she will no longer attempt to reason with him, vowing to kill him where he stands. Despite her outward confidence, she had harbored a moment of doubt before the engagement, wondering if she could truly win against such a large number of foes. The surviving creatures, stunned by the swiftness of the attack, are left wondering where the blow even came from. Nearby, the young girl sits on the ground, shaken but safe, her basket overturned beside her. With the immediate threat handled, she rejoins her retinue of armored soldiers. One expresses his concern, but she assures him she is fine. She explains that their heavy armor would have prevented them from reaching the girl in time, necessitating her swift, solo intervention. The soldier concedes her point, but wishes they had discovered the ambush sooner to provide better support. Suddenly, her senses scream. A wave of killing intent, far more dreadful than the orcs, washes over her from somewhere nearby. She realizes she is no longer alone and calls out, demanding the hidden entity reveal itself, offering a potential alliance if their goals align. From the deepest shadows of the forest, a monstrous beast emerges. It is a towering creature of darkness with a horned, bird-like skull for a head. Seeing no other choice, she prepares to face the new threat. In an instant, the creature vanishes into smoke. Standing where it had been is the masked swordsman, Yugram. He calmly addresses the unseen party, stating that he is not a suspicious person. He appears before Iris, who stares in stunned silence. The sheer ease with which he dispatched such a terrifying foe leaves her momentarily speechless. Her shock quickly hardens into suspicion. She levels her spear directly at him, her voice sharp as she demands to know who he is and orders him to drop his weapon like a gentleman. He doesn't move. She presses him, warning that his response will determine whether she treats him as an enemy. She recalls the unnerving killing intent from moments before, noting that his mask is strange, though she pushes the thought aside as unimportant for now. He casually sheathes his sword with a soft click, completely unfazed by the spear pointed at him. With a slight smile visible beneath his mask, he asks, "Is this better?" Iris can only stare, her eyes wide with disbelief at his relaxed demeanor. He leans forward slightly, his tone becoming more intimate as he makes an offer. He will show his true face, but only to her. He gestures with an open palm, pointing out that his sword is put away and she should calm down and come a little closer. A moment later, his expression shifts as he concedes that the situation is, admittedly, very suspicious and that her caution is understandable. She remains unconvinced, her grip firm on her spear as her soldiers watch from behind. She demands an explanation for the intense killing intent she felt from him just moments before. She presses further, her eyes narrowed, stating that such a powerful aura of bloodlust isn't something one emits by mistake. Yugram, however, simply waves a hand dismissively, casually claiming that his hand just slipped. Standing before the masked swordsman, Iris Rune Afnoa makes a firm demand. She insists that he remove his mask, stating that only then will she listen to what he has to say. Their exchange is violently interrupted. A massive, tusked orc swings a crude club with devastating force, smashing an armored soldier against a wall with a sickening crunch. Both Iris and Yugram turn in shock at the sudden carnage. The hulking creature gloats over the fallen soldiers, mocking them as fools. He sneers that such a small group of humans stood no chance. Nearby, a young attendant apologizes to Lady Iris, urging her to flee quickly. Yugram watches the chaos unfold, annoyed that these lesser foes are making a racket while he is trying to talk. In response, Iris shoves Yugram back, pleading for him to escape. She declares that she and her retainers will handle the enemy. Behind her, a goblin urges her to hurry and leave while they hold the line. Her plan is instantly dismissed as the orc swings his spiked club downward. But instead of crushing her, the weapon is stopped cold. Yugram has stepped in front of her, catching the massive club with a single hand. He remarks coolly that he is rather confident in his power, much to the orc's disbelief. He then turns his head slightly toward Iris, a faint smile playing on his lips. He tells her that he cannot allow her to be injured in a place like this. Iris stares back, her eyes wide with speechless astonishment. His confidence enrages the orc, who roars that he was just trying to look cool. Smashing the ground in a tantrum, he bellows that in the end, they're all going to die anyway. Another creature boasts that when their master gets serious, humans are weak. The surviving soldier and the young girl can only watch in terror. The furious assault is met not with a counterattack, but with a simple snap of Yugram's fingers. A shimmering circular barrier, a magic wall, erupts around them, effortlessly deflecting the blow. He casually asks if the attack is over. Iris is stunned, realizing she felt no impact from such a fierce attack, and that he had deployed the barrier in all directions with one hand. The orc stands dumbfounded, completely unharmed, but unable to comprehend what just happened. He mutters in disbelief, questioning how it's possible. Yugram, his own sword now drawn, calmly states that while there is a reason for his actions, it's a logic the creature wouldn't understand. He then turns his attention back to Iris, holding his ornate blade. He tells her directly that he doesn't think the orc has the capacity to understand an explanation. He stands calmly behind the shimmering barrier, Iris safe behind him. With the orc's weapon now shattered, he coolly asks if the creature has had enough. In response, the orcs roar with fury, enraged by the effortless defense and the utter destruction of their leader's weapon. He dismisses their rage, declaring that it is not his turn to act. Instead, his attention shifts as he decides it is time for a proper introduction. In a flash, a devastating arc of energy sweeps through the clearing, slicing through the orc and his kin. The creature is instantly decapitated, its reign of terror brought to a violent end. With the immediate threat eliminated, he removes his mask to properly face the woman he saved. He introduces himself as Yugram Almankshana. Iris stares, shocked, as she realizes his eyes are golden, just like her own. The moment is interrupted by the arrival of Aldnoa's soldiers, who rush to Iris's side. Flustered, she calls Yugram a blockhead, but he quickly silences her, warning that it would be problematic if the soldiers became aware of their conversation. He considers the situation for a moment, acknowledging it as a difficult question. He decides, however, that he will be direct and state his intentions clearly. Turning to face Iris and her guards, he poses a chilling hypothetical. He asked what she would do if he were to tell her that he had come to kill her. The question hangs in the air, leaving Iris speechless. Her shock gives way to a steely resolve. Iris acknowledges the vast difference in their power, admitting that resistance would be futile. Resigned, she declares that in such a scenario, the only mature response is to offer her own head, and she takes a determined step forward. She questions his true intentions, asking if he really means to kill her. A smile plays on his lips as he dismisses the threat, calling it a mere joke to test her resolve. Then, closing the distance between them, he surprises her with a kiss. He pulls back slightly, a smirk playing on his lips as Iris stares bewildered. He explains that he didn't want an enemy, but rather someone he could talk with, and that his purpose wasn't simply to have a dialogue with someone from the enemy nation. As Iris struggles to form a question, he continues. Leaning closer, his voice drops as he reveals his true intention. He has come to her kingdom to defect. The statement hangs in the air between them. Yugram maintains his confident smirk, while Iris, standing several paces away, can only manage a stunned, huh, as she tries to comprehend his words. His confidence erupts in a triumphant glee. He throws his arms out, loudly proclaiming his intent to defect to her kingdom, Aldnoa. He turns back to her, a playful glint in his eyes, and gestures to himself with a wink, as if presenting a grand prize. Iris remains frozen, her back to him, the weight of his declaration rendering her immobile. Her mind finally catches up, and her expression shatters into utter disbelief. This was an encounter that should never have happened, a meeting that defied all possibility. Before a backdrop of fallen soldiers, Yugram Almain, the prince of the enemy empire, stands before the heroine, Iris. She and her guards look on in disbelief as he makes a sudden proposal of marriage. Iris, her expression a mixture of shock and confusion, demands to know why he would do such a thing. His masked face betrays no emotion as he declares with finality, "I shall explain." The explanation begins under a starry sky, at the imposing Valka castle within the Naraku Empire. Within one of its opulent chambers, a young man awakens with a start. He sits up in bed, touching his neck in a daze, his eyes scanning the unfamiliar, lavish surroundings. As his bare feet find a pair of ornate slippers on the floor, his mind races with confusion. He was certain he had been in his own home, Yet this place felt like a luxury hotel. He moves towards a large mirror, only to recoil in shock. The reflection staring back at him is that of a complete stranger. Staring intently, he recognizes the face in the mirror, but not as his own. A horrifying realization dawns on him as he questions if this is truly his face now, if he has somehow become Yugram. The truth is revealed. He now inhabits the body of Yugram Almangshana, a character from the wildly popular fantasy novel, Sacred Hero Iris. Yugram is known for his peerless talents and handsome features, but is also afflicted by a curse known as the Golden Eye of the Godchild. However, Yugram possesses a fatal flaw. In the original tale, he confidently boasts that his ultimate defense, the magic barrier, can never be broken, a declaration that fills the heroine Iris with dread. Despite his overwhelming combat strength and absolute defense, Yugram is the story's final boss. As such, his ultimate fate is to be defeated by the hero. The man now trapped in his body is forced to witness the memory of Yugram's fated, agonizing end. He broke out in a cold sweat, the realization of his predicament crashing down on him. This was the worst possible outcome. As Yugram, the second prince of the empire, a life of luxury should have been his to enjoy. Instead, his destiny was to be cut down by the hero, his blood staining the very sword meant to bring him glory. This grim fate was a product of the empire's very structure, where ruthless agents preyed on the weak. One such man shouted at the common folk, demanding they repay their debts with exorbitant interest. He threatened that if they had no money, they would be sent to the northern battlefields as conscripts, a useful contribution to the empire's war effort. Before him, two women trembled in terror. Watching this unfold from afar, Yugram came to a simple conclusion. It was not enough. He sat upon his chair, reviewing a report. The agent now knelt before him, stammering that he was gathering the required number of conscripts. Yugram casually remarked that sending more soldiers would only boost his older brother's morale, and that those with the will to fight would be pleased. He then coldly ordered the man to take responsibility and go die, asking if he had any objections to the command. His mind raced with frantic energy. He refused to live such a life, only to become a stepping stone for the glorious empire. He had to avoid his death flag somehow, but how? The only thing that had truly changed was that he was now the one in Yugram's body. He turned his gaze toward a grand portrait. The world around him, the corrupt system, remained the same. This country was rotting from the inside, and if he tried to start a rebellion to reform it, he would simply be crushed. Staring at the face of the emperor, a desperate thought struck him. Was he doomed to simply wait for this nation's destruction? An alternative suddenly became clear. He could leave. He could defect to the Alnoa kingdom, the home of the story's heroine, Iris Rune Afnoa. Unlike the empire, her kingdom was a land of continued peace. And so, he threw himself at her feet, performing the deepest possible bow. He pleaded with the kind-hearted Iris, hoping a desperate enough appeal might grant him sanctuary in the royal palace. He could only pray this approach would work. His gamble paid off. Lounging comfortably while attended by maids, he mused that if he could successfully reverse his fate, a life of luxury in a peaceful kingdom awaited. He told a nearby Iris that with this new arrangement, neither of them would have to fight. He explains to Iris through the window that while his identity as a prince of the enemy nation is unprecedented, his defection is a net benefit for her kingdom, as it weakens his former home. With the decision made, he declares it's time for them to depart and turns to open the door to the hallway. Upon opening it, he is immediately confronted by two armored Aldnoan soldiers standing guard, his expression shifting to one of surprise. The guards, startled, recognize him and stammeringly address him as Your Highness Yugram, asking what he needs. Yugram coughs lightly, realizing with some annoyance that he is still acting like his old, imperious self. His demeanor darkens instantly. He glares at the soldiers, his voice low and menacing, stating that it's noisy outside his room and that they should value their lives. Terrified, the guards immediately apologize for their rudeness and retreat. As they flee, Yugram stands alone, noting that he only felt a flicker of irritation. Yet from deep within his body, something begins to well up, a dark, shadowy energy that starts to emanate from his form. He identifies this power as magic. He recalls the fundamental principle of this world. Magic users gather ambient magical energy to cast their spells. If a powerful technique is used, it consumes so much of the local magic that it becomes unavailable to others. However, Yugram understands that he is unique. He alone possesses a magic core within his body, an ability that generates its own power. This means he is never constrained by the environment or the number of allies nearby. He has a constant, personal supply of magic. He smirks, realizing this incredible power is now his to command. Back in his room, he reflects on the sensation of his power leaking out earlier. He decides to test if he can consciously control it. Focusing his will, he extends a hand, concentrating his energy on a single point. Now fully dressed in his combat attire, he tells Iris he found a magic bag among his belongings and has packed everything from the room inside it. Deciding it's sufficient, he prepares to leave. He moves to the balcony, reasoning that leaving through the door might attract unwanted attention. Telling Iris to wait, he concentrates magic into his feet, preparing to leap from the high ledge into the night. He shouts down from the balcony, drawing the attention of the guard below. As Iris leaps into the night sky, enveloped in a soft light, One of the soldiers asks his comrade if he heard sound. The other guard, completely unaware, replies that he heard nothing at all. With a sharp cry, he launches himself from the height, descending upon the unsuspecting soldiers with a powerful kick, landing gracefully amidst the stunned guards. He tells them that while he bears them no ill will, he cannot permit his escape to be discovered at this crucial moment. Having neutralized the immediate threat, he stands atop the castle ramparts, gazing into the night. He resolves to change his fate within this very kingdom. It was fortunate, he muses, that he awoke during the night. Under the cover of darkness, he can put distance between himself and the castle and make for the next kingdom. He activates a skill, body enhancement, and feels magic surge through him. It's not just his legs that are empowered. His night vision has sharpened as well. With these new abilities, he realizes he can take the most direct route through the forest. A sense of hope blossoms within him. He refuses to simply accept his fate as a final boss destined to be defeated. As he watches Iris leap effortlessly across the rooftops, a new conviction solidifies. The scenario of his life was finally beginning to change. Yugram continued his journey toward the exiled kingdom, having run through the entire night. With the sun now high in the sky, he paused to get his bearings. According to his knowledge, the Aldnoa kingdom should be south of the empire, and the mountain range he could see in the distance confirmed he was on the right path. However, he could feel the effects of his body strengthening technique reaching their limit. He decided it was a good time to rest and practice his magic. His thoughts turned to a specific technique that had once tormented him and his allies, a nearly absolute defense known as the magic barrier, one of Iris's signature skills. He knew that mastering the magic barrier was essential to increasing his chances of survival. Though he couldn't manifest it immediately, he began to focus, attempting to form a more concrete image of it than the descriptions he remembered. He visualized a thin film of energy deploying all around him. His concentration yielded a result. A shimmering, hemispherical barrier materialized before him. He recalled that he had managed to create a similar half-dome barrier during a previous battle, realizing that creating a perfect sphere was the difficult part. With enough training, he felt confident he could master it. But before he could continue his practice, a rustle in the undergrowth caught his attention. He turned sharply, his focus broken, as a large, snarling wolf-like creature emerged from the trees. The creature was not alone. A full pack of the beasts appeared, surrounding him. He grimly noted that real monsters had arrived. This was no training exercise against a final boss like Iris. He needed a clear image of his defense now. He recalled Iris's absolute barrier, a power that could repel any assault. As one of the wolves lunged, he instinctively reacted. In his mind, he heard Iris's command. Deploy magic barrier. A circular shield of energy, etched with glowing runes, erupted into existence, deflecting the beast's attack. The wolves recoiled in surprise. Yugram noted to himself that the sensation of using the barrier was not bad at all. His successful defense brought a confident smirk to his face. With his sword drawn, he declared it was his turn to attack and charged forward, moving from a defensive posture to an offensive one. He maintained the barrier with one hand while preparing his counter. He focused, imagining his magic flowing out beyond the barrier's edge and into his sword, intending to strike the monster directly in front of him. The blade began to shimmer with contained power. The magically infused blade struck its target. A burst of energy erupted as the sword sliced into the wolf, which howled in agony as the power coursed through the wound. He presses his advantage, cleaving through another dire wolf with a powerful, decisive strike. The beast falls, and he pauses, a look of mild surprise on his face. He reflects on the motion, realizing that despite it being his first time truly wielding the blade, his body moved exactly as he had envisioned. With the immediate threat gone, his thoughts turned back to his objective. He knows he must press onto the capital, but acknowledges that more demonic beasts likely lie in wait. He resolves to use the journey to practice his magic, aware of how much training he still requires. His resolve is immediately tested as another wolf lunges from the side. He tries to deploy his barrier, but realizes with a jolt of panic that his enhanced leg strength has thrown off his timing, making the spell too slow. Reacting instinctively, he throws himself aside, realizing the danger of his unstable magic supply. He understands that the original Yugram must have kept these abilities active at all times. To compensate, he decides on a new strategy: drop the sword, focus on deploying the barrier, and supplement it with a muscle boost spell for good measure. He unleashes his power not as a focused attack, but as a wave of pure pressure. A pulse of wide-area intimidation erupts from his position, sending nearby wildlife scattering in terror. The wave of energy subsides, leaving him panting but victorious over a fallen wolf. He reflects that the intimidation technique, which seemed minor in the original tale, has proven quite useful. Confident that other beasts will now keep their distance, he decides to use this brief respite to continue his training. He immediately puts his plan into action, focusing on how to wield the demon's power with greater efficiency. He pushes himself, practicing his movements and marveling at the speed and sensation of his newfound abilities as he grows more accustomed to Yugram's power. Days pass in a blur of relentless training, and he finally masters Yugram's abilities. His journey brings him to a high vantage point where he spots his destination on the horizon. He recognizes it as the royal capital, luminous. He lets out a breath, the exhaustion of his long trek finally setting in. He reflects on the arduous journey, admitting that the constant running and training without rest was grueling. Now, with his goal in sight, he begins to ponder his next move, how to find Iris, and whether he should even attempt to approach the royal palace. He considered the risk of his true identity being exposed before meeting Iris, but quickly dismissed the concern. He had already taken countermeasures, having borrowed a new mask from Yugram's room. Holding it up for inspection, he declared it perfect for his needs. With his disguise secured, he raced through the city. For the sake of his ambition, he had to find Iris without a moment's delay. His search led him directly to her. As Iris turned, surprised, she questioned his presence. He explained with a confident smile that he was confronting the current circumstances purely as Yugram, and that his reason for being reincarnated in this world was quite simple. He declared that the reason was simply because it allowed him to meet her here. Without pausing, he then made a bold request, to be allowed to stay in the royal palace under her authority. Iris could only stare back, bewildered. As he pointed at her to emphasize his point, she swiftly caught his hand, stopping him. Her grip tightened, and with a look of pure irritation, she asked if he would mind if she broke his finger. He yelped in pain, his confident demeanor shattering instantly. Releasing him, she stated plainly that she did not understand his intentions. A prince from an enemy nation was seeking asylum, yet she had no reason to trust him. His words sounded less like a negotiation and more like a demand. She questioned what possible benefit her kingdom could gain from helping him. He quickly recovered, assuring her that there were, of course, benefits. He began his proposal by stating that the empire was currently lacking in military power, a void he could fill. Furthermore, he offered to provide valuable intelligence from within the empire. He continued with growing excitement, explaining that in exchange for lending his power, he would expect compensation and vacation time. He then pointed triumphantly, declaring his proposal a perfect win-win happy set. Iris, unimpressed, simply asked if there was more to his offer. His demeanor shifted to one of complete sincerity. He acknowledged the possibility that if their negotiations failed, they could become enemies. However, he believed their meeting was fated. Looking directly at her, he made a solemn vow that he would never hurt her. His promise hung in the air, leaving Iris to contemplate his words. She reaches a decision, her expression firm. She declares her trust in him and formally accepts his proposal. In the name of Iris Rune Aldnoa, she promises Yugram Almingshana a life of peace and prosperity. Hearing her words, he internally erupts with joy. He has succeeded. His asylum is secured. It was a struggle to maintain his stoic, princely facade without letting his guard down. He maintains his composure, agreeing that the finer details could be discussed upon their return to the kingdom. Iris formally welcomes him, addressing him as Prince Yugram. He returns the sentiment, formally acknowledging her as Iris. As they shake hands to seal their pact, Iris playfully tests him, asking what he would do if she changed her mind and tried to capture him. He grasps her hand firmly, dismissing the notion with a confident smile. He assures her that no one can capture him, for he is the strongest. His confidence is instantly shattered. A jolt of surprise runs through him as something completely unexpected occurs. In a flash, Iris has twisted his arm behind his back, effortlessly subduing him. She looks down at the captured prince, explaining that his overconfidence prompted her to test his claim. With a triumphant smile, she points out how easily he was caught. The self-proclaimed strongest warrior is left utterly flustered and defeated. In pursuit of a charming palace life, Yugram Almain shatters the heavy chains binding his wrists with a ferocious roar. Iris watches him, remarking on his incredible power, which she likens to that of a demon. Kneeling before her, Yugram retorts that the comparison is rude. He insists that this level of training is sufficient and demands she take him to the capital. Iris agrees, but warns that the carriage ride will be quite shaky and he will have to endure it. She then asks about the luggage cart. Following her gesture, they both turn to look at a simple, open-topped wooden cart being pulled by a single horse. Yugram stares, surprised by the humble mode of transport. He approaches the driver and asks where he should get on, and is told to open the back. Yugram seems intrigued by the novelty, remarking that it looks fun. With a determined expression, Iris announces their departure. Their journey begins. While Iris rides gracefully on a white steed, Yugram is jostled about in the back of the cart as part of a small caravan, which includes another rider in a distinctive pointed hat. As they travel, Iris informs Yugram that it will take about an hour to reach the capital, and that their plan is to enter through the main gate. This news startles him. Iris explains that his mask is far too suspicious, and that he should borrow a cloak to cover his head. She briefly questions why he has no luggage from the castle, but dismisses it as just another suspicious magic tool. She elaborates that even if he removed the mask, his face would be recognized, and they must cooperate to avoid any unnecessary trouble. Looking vexed, Yugram reluctantly agrees, seeing no other way to reach the capital. Now mounted on a horse beside her, he acknowledges her plan. As they approach the city's main gate, Iris instructs him to behave like a respectable adult from this point forward. He pulls a dark hood over his head and suggests that, to further avoid complications, she should call him you. Iris smiles faintly and agrees, addressing him as Yusan as they ride toward the towering city gates. His companion, Iris, gestured grandly towards the towering structures before them. With a bright smile, she formally welcomed him to Lumina's, the capital of her Aldnoa kingdom. He gazed up at the sprawling cityscape, a soft sound of awe escaping his lips as he took in the view from their approaching cart. To pass through the main gate unobserved, he had concealed himself in the back of the cart, jostling between large barrels as they rumbled over the cobblestones. While he remained hidden, Iris rode alongside their mysterious companion, confirming they had passed through without any trouble. The woman in the pointed hat noted Iris must be tired and asked for her impressions of the capital. From his hiding spot, he quietly remarked that it was far more magnificent than he had ever imagined. He continued his observation, noting that it wasn't just the architecture. The faces of the people were filled with a vitality that was completely different from the atmosphere in the Empire. Hearing his earnest assessment, a soft, pleased chuckle escaped Iris's lips. Once they reached a more secluded courtyard, Iris informed him it was safe enough to remove his hood. She explained that they would leave the horses with the soldiers and proceed to the royal palace, prompting a questioning sound from him. His face suddenly lit up with excitement. With an enthusiastic thumbs up, he eagerly asked if he could go sightseeing, but Iris's expression immediately shifted to one of shocked disbelief as she shouted her refusal. She grabbed his cloak, sternly reminding him to consider his position and their delicate situation. She warned that if his true identity were exposed, all their efforts would be for naught, and insisted he behave himself to avoid being discovered. He leaps energetically from the back of the cart, declaring that since they've arrived in such a peaceful city, they shouldn't let the opportunity go to waste. Below, a shocked Iris calls out his name, pleading for him to wait. Ignoring her completely, he celebrates his newfound freedom, singing about enjoying a peaceful life now that he has become the final boss. He strikes dramatic poses, strumming an imaginary instrument and reveling in the moment. His impromptu tour leads him to a market stall, where he leans in close to a vendor, startling the man with his sudden and boisterous presence. This disruptive behavior quickly attracts unwanted attention, for city guards surround him, their expressions grim, bringing his celebration to an abrupt halt. He faces the guards, insisting that he is not a suspicious person. He admits his name might be a bit much and his profession unclear, but argues that he is by no means suspicious. A guard retorts that his excuses only make him seem more so. Yugram then demands they dispel the magic barrier around it. Before the situation can escalate, Iris rushes in and grabs Yugram by the collar. She apologizes profusely to the guards, explaining that he is her guest and a bit of an idiot, but not a criminal who requires their attention. Yugram silently fumes, wondering why they are trying to apprehend him for doing nothing wrong. She bows deeply, her face flushed with embarrassment as she formally apologizes for his rudeness and the disturbance he caused. With the guards gone, Yugram cheerfully thanks her, noting that her intervention was a great help. Iris, however, is furious, declaring that she was the one who had to suffer through the ordeal and warns him not to run away. She glares at him with cold fury. He meekly asks if it was really that bad, and she snaps back that of course it was. He attempts to justify his actions, explaining that while they didn't come to the capital to play, he couldn't pass up a place that would so thoroughly capture a young boy's adventurous heart. Hearing this, Iris's anger softens into resignation, and she sighs that it can't be helped. She informs Yugram that an audience with the king has been permitted for the following day, but only on the condition that she accompanies him. Overjoyed, he thanks her profusely. Her expression softens into exasperation as she turns away, muttering about how simple-minded he is. Her brief moment of exasperation gives way to a more serious tone. She turns back to him, her expression now stern, reminding him that his welcome is solely due to her vouching for him. Any further misbehavior, she warns, will earn the king's wrath. With a sullen look, he agrees to stop causing trouble. With the warning delivered, the grand doors to the throne room swing open. Iris leads the way inside, Yugram following a step behind her as they walk past the honor guard. As they approach the throne, the emperor greets his daughter, Iris, acknowledging her report about the subjugation of a recent monster threat. Iris confirms her success, and the emperor smiles, expressing his pride and his relief that she is safe. His pleasantries concluded, the emperor's demeanor turns serious. He informs her that reports of monster sightings near the capital are on the rise. Though the cause is still under investigation, he entrusts her with the matter. Iris accepts the duty, vowing to do all she can to protect the nation and its people. His attention then shifts from his daughter to the silent figure standing behind her. He addresses Iris, his voice laced with suspicion, asking about the identity of the masked man. Startled by the direct question, Iris begins to explain that he is the one who defeated the monster. The emperor, however, seems to have already drawn his own conclusion, remarking on the man's apparent skill and causing a stir among the courtiers. He addresses the masked man directly, stating his desire to offer a reward for his aid. The emperor then formally asks him to state his name. Sensing a moment of hesitation, Iris places a reassuring hand on Yugram's shoulder. She quietly tells him not to worry, vouching for the emperor's trustworthiness. He acknowledges her words with a simple, "I understand." The emperor, noticing the pause, leans forward and encourages him to speak, assuring him that his status as a commoner or traveler makes no difference and that they should proceed. He apologizes for the discourtesy, stating that he will formally introduce himself. With his back still turned, he announces his full name, Yugram Almangshana. He then turns to face the emperor, removing his mask to reveal his face and golden eyes. "That is my name, he declares with unwavering confidence. The declaration sends a shockwave through the throne room. The Emperor's eyes widen in disbelief as he recognizes the golden eyes, exclaiming how it could be possible. He questions why the prince of the enemy empire is standing in his palace. In response to the revelation, the royal guards instantly surround Yugram, leveling their spears at him and shouting for him not to move. The Emperor turns his bewildered gaze to Iris, demanding to know why she brought the third prince of the empire before him. She boldly declares that she was the one who brought him. The Emperor, still on his throne, rebukes her, calling her actions foolish and dangerous. He demands to know on what grounds she trusts this man, reminding her that war with the empire is an inevitability. Iris counters firmly, stating she brought Yugram to make him their ally. She explains plainly that her life was saved by Yugram. The Emperor reacts with shock to her claim. Iris elaborates, reporting that the monsters they encountered were far more ferocious than anticipated. She warns that not only are their numbers increasing, but their threat level is rising as well. If Yugram hadn't been there to help her at that moment, she would have perished. He processes this, a bead of sweat forming on his brow as he realizes they might not have returned alive. He recalls the report. Yugram had felled the powerful creature with a single sword strike, his skill in magic far exceeding any evaluation. The Emperor wonders if he is a child of God, of being blessed with immense power. He concludes that this must be why Iris brought him to their kingdom. She argues that having the prince of the empire on their side would be a decisive advantage, ensuring their victory. With him as an ally, no enemy could stand against them when war finally breaks out. The Emperor remains conflicted, stating that he cannot simply trust the son of his enemy. Iris pleads with him to remain calm. As the tension hangs in the air, Yugram smiles calmly. He tells the Emperor that he thinks Iris's proposal is a good one, then politely asks if he may also have a word. The future of their negotiations remains uncertain. At a critical juncture for the Seven Lives plan, Yugram stands before the Emperor in the throne room, flanked by Iris and the royal guard. The monarch, seated high above, gives his assent. He will hear what Yugram has to say. A confident smile spreads across his face. He announces that, first, he will provide them with proof. In an instant, an immense wave of magical power erupts from him, flooding the chamber. The soldiers cry out in alarm, and even the Emperor grunts, straining against the overwhelming pressure. The force slams through the throne room, sending the armored soldiers flying like dolls. Ornate chandeliers shatter and rain down from the ceiling as Iris stares in wide-eyed horror, crying out his name. The shockwave is felt even by onlookers far from the throne. Forced to her knees by the sheer pressure, Iris trembles, realizing with dawning terror that this is Yugram's true power. Even the Emperor is shaken, his hand trembling as he grips the arm of his throne. He stares at Yugram, questioning what this all means and wondering if the young man intends to kill them all right there. Amidst the fallen guards, he stands untouched, his expression calm. He looks over the incapacitated soldiers and asks if this is their true nature. He then clarifies his actions, explaining that this display is merely proof. If he were truly serious, he could kill everyone. He holds up a single finger where a small orb of light coalesces, stating that this is not his real intention. The Emperor watches, his mind racing to comprehend. With a sharp snap of his fingers, the light vanishes, and the crushing magical pressure dissipates completely. All around him, the soldiers begin to stir, freed from his power. The demonstration concluded. He turns to Iris, who remains on the floor. He extends a hand toward her, gently asking if she is able to stand. He reassures Iris that he didn't intend to cause her any physical distress with his display of power. Still holding his hand, she confirms that she is all right. Turning his attention to the Emperor, he makes a formal proposal. He pledges to use his power for the kingdom's benefit and asks for their trust in return, framing it as a solemn vow from a prince who has abandoned his homeland. The Emperor, however, remains wary, questioning why Yugram would offer such strength to their nation. He explains with a confident smile that the Empire's current situation is dire, but more importantly, this kingdom has Iris. He then lays out his terms. In exchange for his power, he asks only for a peaceful life. He frames it as a fair trade, leaving Iris to wonder at her own inclusion in his reasoning. He elaborates, stating that even with abilities far surpassing the ordinary, the destiny of a child of God is too great a burden for a single girl to carry, particularly when she is also a princess. His thoughts drift to their first encounter, recalling how she stood bravely against a monstrous orc to protect him, a complete stranger at the time. He reflects on her noble and kind spirit. He continues his explanation to the Emperor, acknowledging that the beast was a formidable foe for Iris. Despite this, she faced it without hesitation. Her courage, he admits, moved him and made him want to lend her his aid. Internally, he contemplates the grim fate that awaits her. He knows in the narrative he is familiar with, Iris is destined to die, a death flag she is meant to trigger. But having met her, having seen her character firsthand, he resolves that he cannot let that future come to pass. For him, she has become his greatest motivation. He then turns directly to Iris, a smile on his face, and makes a clear declaration. He likes the holy hero, Iris. Her eyes widen in utter shock, her mind struggling to process his words. A blush spreads across her face as the Emperor roars in disbelief, his guards echoing his shock. The entire court is thrown into stunned silence by the unexpected confession. She reels from the sudden confession, her face flushed as she covers her mouth in disbelief. Beside her, the Emperor's regal composure cracks, his shock palpable. The court erupts in whispers. The soldiers find Yugram's impassioned plea at odds with his cold reputation. They acknowledge that while a father might trust his daughter's judgment, a king cannot risk his nation's destiny on such a whim. Amidst the confusion, Iris turns to Yugram, questioning his sudden outburst. He watches the scene unfold, his mind racing. The Emperor concedes that while his kingdom has methods to counter Yugram's strength, they lack a definitive strategy to ensure victory. Iris looks on, her expression filled with worry as she calls out to her father. Yugram turns back to Iris, calmly acknowledging that her hesitation is natural. He advises her to consider his proposal carefully before making a decision, then announces his departure. As he walks away, she calls out his name, trying to stop him. Before he can take another step, she explodes into motion. In a flash of white and silver, Iris vaults over the railing, her spear materializing in her hand as she lands between him and the exit. He spins around, his eyes wide with shock at her sudden, decisive action. His surprise is mirrored by the Emperor's. Iris, now facing Yugram, explains her reasoning. She believes that if she, as the protector of Aldnoa, can demonstrate her strength, her father will have no choice but to accept it. A confident smile spreads across her face as she levels the tip of her spear at him. With unwavering resolve, she issues a challenge, a duel between them. Her proposal leaves both Yugram and the Emperor completely speechless, their minds struggling to process the sudden turn of events. A duel between Iris and Yugram is about to begin. On a castle balcony overlooking a courtyard, Yugram Almain stands before Iris Rune Afnoa. He is told that the key to the kingdom's fate is a duel with her. Confused, Yugram asks what she means, to which Iris replies that he must grant his majesty's wish. She presents him with a sword, expressing her faith that he can defeat her and urging him to take it. Yugram remains skeptical, stating that his attacks won't connect anyway. He then sets a condition. If she insists on giving him a handicap, she must refrain from using her magic barrier. Accepting his terms, she declares her attack and leaps forward, bringing her blade down. In a powerful arc, Yugram reacts instantly, raising his own sword to meet hers in a sharp clang of steel. Their blades continue to clash in a flurry of motion. As they trade blows, Yugram realizes that thanks to his body reinforcement skill, he can clearly see the trajectory of her attacks. Her strikes are anything but random. She aims with deadly precision for his thigh, then his collarbone, and finally his throat. Each movement is efficient, targeting a vital point and forcing him onto the defensive. The intensity of the fight evokes a powerful image. Iris, adorned with angelic wings, facing a dark, demonic figure reminiscent of Yugram. It is a vision of the final, fated battle between the hero and the demon lord. Pulled back to the present, he can only manage a strained smile. He reflects on the mentally taxing situation, feeling as though he's been cast as the final villain in this scenario. She, too, is lost in thought, acknowledging to herself that in a straightforward fight where both use their full power, she would have no chance of winning. Her blade is deflected once more. She internally admits this duel was the only way to reassure everyone, but she's stunned by his skill, recognizing the power of the child of God is no mere pretense. She realizes he is matching her purely with his sword, just as she is, a level of restraint she hadn't anticipated. She understands that even with this handicap, her swordsmanship is not enough. With renewed determination, she presses her attack, desperate to land at least a single blow. She lunges forward with all her might, but he effortlessly sidesteps the attack, calmly pointing out that her form is flawed. Her momentum carries her past him, sending her stumbling and crashing to the stone floor with a grunt of frustration. Pushing herself up from the ground, she grits her teeth and insists that she can still fight, but he simply stands over her, unimpressed. He observes that her swordplay has grown desperate, and continuing the duel would be pointless, as the outcome would remain the same. He kneels down, however, and concedes that her form has improved. Since he is the strongest, he sees no reason for her to feel discouraged and offers to teach her. Surprised, she asks if he means to mentor her. Her surprise quickly turns into bright-eyed resolve. Standing abruptly, she declares that she has made a decision. Yugram is to become her exclusive instructor and personal guard. She reasons that if the strongest warrior teaches her, she too will become strong. He forces a smile, admitting her logic isn't bad, but flatly refuses the offer. Unfazed, she beams and cheerfully informs him that it is a royal command. Her cheerful demeanor vanishes, replaced by flustered anger. She demands another match immediately, insisting to a stunned Yugram that the outcome of their duel and her request for training are entirely separate matters. Meanwhile, the soldiers observing from the gallery murmur amongst themselves. One notes that the prince's behavior is nothing like the rumors they've heard of the vicious prince. From his throne, the emperor's voice cuts through the argument, calling a halt to the proceedings. He declares it was an honorable match fought without reservation, and because of this display, he will believe Yugram's earlier words. With a confident smile, Yugram formally accepts the emperor's command, acknowledging his new station within the royal palace. He is immediately taken under Iris's care. She instructs him to follow her, and he readily agrees, though her own expression betrays a hint of surprise at the sudden turn of events. From his vantage point, The Emperor reflects on his decision. He recalls Yugram's respectful demeanor during their duel and considers it a necessary counter to his own daughter's beautiful, but sometimes unreasonable nature. As they walk through the palace halls, Iris expresses her relief that the situation has been resolved. With a bright smile, she declares her intention to begin his training as her instructor as soon as he is settled in his new quarters. She leads him down an ornate corridor, gesturing toward a set of doors and announcing that his room is just ahead. He thanks her casually, but she quickly informs him that this is no ordinary room, it's a special one. Her statement leaves him puzzled, wondering what she means. With a flourish, she reveals the truth. The room is special because it is right next to her own. The revelation stuns him. He can only stare in disbelief, the words echoing in his mind. The princess is his next-door neighbor.